So I am so excited today to have with me Superintendent Zandra Jo Galván from Greenfield Union in California, a dear friend and colleague and someone I respect so much for the incredible work you do nationally. So welcome.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here with you, share some space, and just talk about the things that we do in our day to day.
So, sharing this space, is a unique space because you're also in the middle of getting ready to run this school year. You kicked off about 3 weeks ago. This is your seventh year of kicking off a school year as a superintendent. How is that going? And what are your thoughts about what you want this year to mean?
Yeah, so we launched this year, super excited. Our convocation was a student panel, really talking about their hopes and dreams. This year's theme is hashtag cultivating curiosity, trust, inspire, discover, and grow. And we're using that theme throughout the district because we want kids to go back to being kids, to just start with things from the first time and get curious about it. Do that first iteration, do it again, and take risks. And the Trust and Inspire is going to be based on Stephen Covey's book that he just launched. And so we're doing that work at our administrative level, but also every school is reading a chapter. Departments are breaking it up, grade levels, to really look at how do we create this culture of craving to learn and to inspire our kids to greatness. And so that's really the things that we're excited about. And every morning I start off by being in classrooms with kids, just capturing them being kids, whether it's a preschooler all the way up to our secondary level, finding out what makes them happy, what are their hopes and dreams, and then creating opportunities to cultivate that.
So, Zandra, I always love how intentional you are. You always connect things. You bring so much joy to spaces. You're always very student-centered. But these are some wacky times we're in, a little bit politically interesting. It's about as much as I can say about what's happening throughout our nation. And a lot of those things that are happening politically are distracting for us. And rather than get into that, what I'm interested in is hearing from you. What are those major changes, right? Since you started teaching to where you are as a superintendency, what are one or two things that you point to that have changed significantly for leaders and teachers going into education today?
Yeah, I think the huge change is what's on the spotlight and what's on the conversational piece now that in the past we didn't talk about. Like we didn't talk about how important ethnic studies is. We didn't talk about how important it is to honor LGBTQ plus communities. We didn't talk about things that we just, put it under the rug and said, you know what, I know that might be something, but we're not going to talk about, we're not going to touch it. And so having those front and center, like even also in the past, we didn't really talk about a college going culture. Like sometimes many of our families just assumed they were going to go right into the workforce right away and not necessarily go to college. So all of those things are now discussion points, and honoring and nurturing the gifts that students bring to us and who they are is so important. I'm very fortunate to work in a community that I grew up in, but also that honor and nurture the gifts that students bring to us. And also I'm very happy and honored to work for a board that supports that. They see kids for who they are. They aren't opposed to ethnic studies. In fact, we already had a course in our secondary setting before it was even a requirement in the state of California, because we honor kids learning about their history. We have so many parent cafes and events in our district where we include our parents as partners, and they see the value that they bring, and their asset value minded rather than deficit mindsets. And then with our LGBTQ community, we're not going to turn a kid away and say, no, we're going to shake that out of you. It's not possible. And so we have those conversations about, if this is what you're feeling, how can we support you in your journey through life and making sure that you can fulfill your hopes and dreams. And so all of those things that kids can be kids about, but we're also going to nurture and support you from where you enter our school system at, and then take you further along. So I think it's more now the climate is we talk about those things. We don't pretend that they don't exist. And we're unafraid and unapologetic to say the things that we need to say, because if we don't, silence is permission to continue the behavior. And we're not going to allow kids to just be dismissed or, overlooked because of something that's in their heart.
I love the way you kind of couch this time period. It
Yeah.
is a time period where we are confronting, talking about, embracing lots of changes. In fact, 54% of our students in public education today are students of color and growing. And the white population is decreasing. That there are changing demographics in this nation. It's creating different conditions and contexts for dialogue. And that's a good thing. And conflict is going to be a natural part of that. So I love the way you couch it around. We're going to embrace everyone, welcome everyone, learn from everyone. That's a great culture and climate that you're building there.
Yeah, thank you. And we also open up spaces for adults to talk about those things because we do know, there's a movement and we're part of that movement and making sure that representation matters and students see themselves in the adults that are their role models in school settings. And so the more we have that represents and looks professionally someone that they could aspire to become is really important. But we also open up spaces. I am proud to say that we'll have book clubs with our staff members and nationally and locally within our organizations that we support that talk about that. I mean, we talked about the anti-racist curriculum with Dr. Kendi, and we talked about, what does that mean? And how do I enter into a space without assumptions about who you are based on who you appear to be, or assumptions about you're white, therefore you have nothing, you have no knowledge about Latino kids. That's not fair also. And so really embracing that. And also we talk about things like, we have books right here that we've talked about with Separate is Not Equal, like talking about historically colorism between even our Latino kids. I'm 98% Latino community, 95% unduplicated count of students in poverty. Our parents trust us with their greatest, commodity, their children. And so we have to talk about things that exist, like colorism, I'll say. And, light-skinned Latinos certainly have, a little bit more privilege than those of our dark skin. And I am one to be a part of that privilege. When I walk into spaces and places, people make assumptions about me and don't think I speak Spanish or don't think I am even Hispanic in nature and a Latina. And so I firmly embrace that and talk about my journey of, sometimes being embarrassed when we were in a time period when I grew up that, it was better that I listened to country music rather than mariachi, because that was during that time where it was a melting pot. They were trying to, strip us of our true authenticity rather, and the alternative was to assimilate. And so all of those things that we experience, we use as our lived narrative to then transform the lives of the students that we serve and the people that we serve, because there are people within our community that are scarred because of that. So bringing light to that. Another book club that we embraced in nationally, and many of my staff engaged in it, was Brown Girls, with Sharp Edges and Tender Hearts by Dr. Prisca Dorca. We talked about her book and really talking about how do we stay true to who we are and be unapologetic about being a brown girl. And so while maybe my younger version of myself during a time period was, afraid to say, yes, I'm brown and I'm proud of being brown and this is my community because that's what was just indoctrinated into us, is completely a different person that entered into the educational system and honoring and nurturing and just celebrating the gifts that our all ethnic backgrounds bring. But I represent a very special, brown Latina in me that I want to make sure that our girls within our communities are proud, are very proud, and never mistake or shun their heritage because it's not popular.
So Zandra, a couple of times you talked about the kind of the book clubs and discussions you're in nationally. So, you're leading a school district in California. So you're at the local level. You're part of statewide and regional networks, and you're part of these national dialogues. You're also a mom. You're also a doctoral student. So I would love to talk a little bit about that. How is that going? What does it mean to you to be pursuing your doctorate? You're at the University of Southern California. You're at dissertation stage. This is a huge, additional accomplishment, but also additional pressure on your time. and your attention. And so how's that going?
Yeah, so it is a balancing act. It definitely is. I'm so honored to have the family structure, at home, that I'm able to do the things that I want to do as a superintendent. My husband's retired, and so he gets to, do the things that he loves to do. But also, I have 3 children. I have a 13-year-old and twins that are 11, and so that balance with them is in the evenings. On the weekends, it's family time. As much as during the evenings that I can give them, with the constraints of our job, but Friday night through the weekend is absolutely family time, where I am devoted to being present for my children as well as during those vacation times, so that they never think that, I missed out on mom's time because she was working too much. So I'm very cognizant of that and trying to find the balance. On the other side, on the educational professional side, when you live out your passion, it's not work. It's not work. And I think as we go through a journey in life, and I've, had a lot of my own experience that were not very good, that I switch over and make them into good by then changing the lived narrative or the lived experience of the students in this district or others. It's passion work. And life to me is just a series of moments, and realizing as we get older and wiser that every moment is something that you never get back. And so the energy that you bring into spaces, the way you live your life, who you give your time to, how you prioritize what's important, and the impact, the lasting impression that you are able to offer to others through our passions is what allows it to not be so much work, but to be fulfillment. And so I will share that being a superintendent is a greatest joy. One of my most favorite positions in life, even on the days when I'm in the corner, licking my wounds and curled up in a ball, like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? I have sister soups and people like you, people like, Liz Alvarez, who I adore from Chicago, people like Latanya Guffney, who I adore from Texas, Catrice Pereira, just people all over the nation that are my sisters that say, Zandra, snap out of it. I think your crown fell off for a little bit. Put it back on. You're a queen. You can do this work. Continue to live out your passion. That supports it. The passion with additional mentoring of female soups through ASA, through ALAS, just ended my presidency with CALSA. All of those kinds of things are just being able to connect with others to show them you too can live out your passion and feel fulfilled at the end of the day because of the impact that you've made and the engagement that you've had with others. I also just really love to uplift sisters and further superintendents. I know you have, better than I do right now, the most current statistics when it comes to superintendents across this nation. And so with my dissertation work, it's going to be all about that. And so my passion is increasing the number of superintendents that are of color, Black and brown, but not just women. I love my sisters, and we will command a space when we walk into it because we're very confident in knowing that we deserve that seat. But all people, so Black and brown, men and women, students need people that look like them. Our boys need mentors and our females need mentors. So that balance with my doctorate in the dissertation stage is passion work. I am so excited to, be finishing the initial chapters, going into the research and interviewing, because my topic is all around making sure that we increase the number of Black and brown superintendents across the nation. And my questions are going to be about staying power. I want to interview superintendents that have stayed in the position longer than 5 years, because I do believe there's a secret sauce, but I don't know what that secret sauce is. I know what my secret sauce is because I've lived it here now, entering my 7th year. But what did other people do? And what I want to do with it then is to gift it to other Black and brown sister and brother superintendents that are aspiring to that position, to say, here it is. Like, when you go into the position, please make sure you do this. I know there's going to be something about relationships that comes out. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know it's going to be something that can be replicated, because the likelihood of 10 to 12 superintendents across the nation saying something about what they did with relationships is pretty high, but I don't know what it is. Having them talking about the organizational systems that they put into place that allowed them to stay, beyond 5 years, there's going to be something there too. So the way the balance is for me is family first. I love my family. I adore them, and I give them my full 100% self when I'm with them. That then allows me to have that professional side that isn't work. It's just passion lived out through the series of moments and the interactions and the connecting with others that encourages others to see that it's possible.
Zandra, I love your perspective, your life perspective that you bring
Yeah.
to everything you do. But you know, there are going to be some women who are listening to you saying, she just said she gave 100% to her family, but she also said she has a job and she has a doctorate, and you know, the numbers don't add up, Zandra, but but we
In
know
that,
that it has
yeah.
to do with the perspective you bring, right? And that
Yes.
passion you bring. You know, one of the things that's interesting in the research you're going to be engaged with and the national research that exists is that oftentimes as women, when we get together, you know, and we're supporting one another through our doctorates, we don't realize how few superintendents actually have a doctorate. In this nation, only 11% of superintendents who are seated have doctorates, and 26% or so have master's degree, which means 50% of our nation's superintendents are serving under a bachelor's degree. But when you look at that number, over 60% of the 11% that have doctorates are women. So there are more women in the seat with a doctorate than men in the seat with doctorates. There are also more people of color in the seat with doctorates than people who don't identify as people of color with a doctorate. And so my question to you is, what are your thoughts around whether women, and particularly women of color, are feeling more pressure to have a doctorate in order to serve? And, you know, and what does that say about the context that we live in to have even access to a seat like this?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And so, do women in general feel the pressure? I do believe so. I think so, because the opportunities are so slim. When you look at the number of applicants in a pool for a superintendent position versus male of color, male, white woman, women of color, I would say the statistics are demonstrating that the white male will get it before others, if with or without that doctorate, because you see in spaces that I interact with the number, right? And so why is that so? And I do also believe that boards are gatekeepers. The boards who hire superintendents, I think, are also assuming there's this type of person that they need to hire. And it not necessarily will be a woman of color. And so we need to do the extra to show that we are qualified. We are already qualified. I'm going to tell that to our listeners at the gate. So there is no need to get this other thing, because we already, women, in what we know, you know, through the book studies and through all the research that we've done, is that we do already the extra before we even apply, which is why we stay in the teaching career for so long. Before we even apply, we need to get the academy. We need our children to be raised. We need to, you know, think about the setting. We need to think about our family. We need to make sure that we have that other degree and that we do have the doctorate before we even apply, because of the stories we create in our own heads about who those gatekeepers will hire and not hire, right? And so with all that, I think there is an added layer of pressure that is placed on women to get those. And I think some of them are external and some of them are internal. For me, I already had the superintendency before I got my doctorate. So I'm working on there now. And again, I started when I was already 4 or 5 years in to the superintendency. Did I need it? Probably not. Did I want it? Absolutely. Absolutely, I wanted it. And why did I wait this long? Oh, well, I was raising kids. I was doing all these other things. And I was thinking like, oh, one day I'll get it. And all of a sudden that day is coming and it's like, okay, just do it, apply, right? So for me, it was more of a want. Why did I want it? For so many reasons. I wanted to show my own children that mom can do this. If mom can do this, you can do this. I wanted to show other girls in my organization, that the top level official that came to the schools that we came to that looks just like me can achieve a doctorate as well. I also wanted to show other females across the nation that it's possible. And through mentorship, encourage others to do the same thing. Time is still going to pass. So you might as well be taking a class. You might as well be studying, things that you love. And my associate superintendent, I encouraged her. She's just started the program this year to make sure it happened. And so through that mentorship, you see that it's possible. And so did we feel the pressure? Some, I would say, yes, do. Did I feel the pressure? Not so much a pressure as just an internal force that wanted to prove that it can be done to show others. I want you to do it too.
And I love the way you share those different layers that come into play as you think about why you're getting a doctorate, why you want a doctorate. It just shows the multifaceted ways in which I think women and women of color serve in this nation. I want to wrap us up with your advice to other women. When you're in the top leadership seat, especially when you're a person of color, a Latina, and you're sharing and you're always so open with your personal history, and that's inspiring to others. So others are watching you, listening to you. What's your advice for those who are in the path, are wondering if they should pursue the superintendency? What do you say to them?
This is a great question. And so I am my true self, and you see what you see is what you get. And I am unafraid to be vulnerable with people and show them that you don't have to have a one kind of vision or a mold that a superintendent needs to be. That we come in all shapes and sizes and colors and shades and personalities. And in our own right, are the effective person that our districts need us to be, but also personally to be true and authentic to who we are. And so as my journey through life has been, being the baby of 6, growing up during an era, coming to schools that, may or may not had equity-based models, we learn and we grow through every experience. And so my advice to others out there, especially women who are looking at this position as, I don't know if I can do it. You absolutely can. You absolutely can, because you're never going to do it alone, because you have me, you have Dr. K, you have so many sisters across this nation that are already rooting for you before you even apply. And I think that's the first step, that we need to jump over that hurdle to say, can I? Am I enough? Can I do it? The answer is always going to be yes, because you will always have a support system to get you there. And the other thing that is really important to me is being a role model that others can see it can be done. And the other part of that is that I cannot, because I have an internal ethical, moral standard within me, I can't mess this up. I can't mess up this job. I cannot be that Latina superintendent that makes a mistake, because that will be the sacrifice for all those behind me that are coming next. Because as we know, stereotypes are really easy to place on people that then become everyone's narrative. So what I do in this position has to be really good, has to be top-notch, caliber level, that cares about kids, that shows that relationships matter, kids matter. Every single program, opportunity that I bring into our school district has thought and process and meaning behind it, because I can't mess it up. These kids have one chance to have an amazing education. And if I am part of that determining factor, and the people I hire and the principals that walk through classrooms and the teachers that are in front of kids matter, then this role matters 1,000% more. And I think once we realize the impact that you have with the title of superintendent, more women will realize that it's for them, because you are the determining factor of what gets in front of kids. And gone are the days where I had to ask someone else, well, can we do this? Can we do this? I know it's really good for kids. Guess what? I get to say yes more than I say no. Because if people have a feeling in their heart, a passion in their heart, when the parents come to us with a need and a hope and a dream for their baby. And I have, with our team, the opportunity to provide that for them, then that in itself is just really, really powerful. And it's an honor to be able to serve a community that trusts us with their most precious commodity, their children. And so my answer to that, the shorter answer is absolutely. Sisters, women, absolutely do it. Take that step. Call me, call other sister superintendents, because you're never going to be alone and you absolutely can do the job.
So wise and inspiring words from Zandra. Thank you so much for the time. You almost make me want to go back into the superintendency, but actually I know it's someone else's turn. So I'd rather pass the baton and inspire others to continue this incredible work. I agree with you. I think the superintendent seat, it's really an incredible role. It is just a career path that is just so rewarding back to the person that's leading. And I absolutely loved it. Just like you show an eminent, show that kind of love for our children and for our community. So thank you, Superintendent, for your time with me today. And thank you for your leadership. And I look forward to continue to see you on this journey.
Yay. Thank you so much. Proud to be with you.